All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of DEO's Growth Secrets Podcast. I'm Jake Puhl, the CEO of the DEO. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're calling this our CEO series. All of you know that within the dental industry, us at DEO have relationships with a lot of our industry partners. These are partners who come in and are trying to help your business, trying to save you time and money so you don't have to hire entire teams to build out softwares and build out all the complications that it takes to run a dental group and dental practices. And we want to talk to some of those leaders and see what it's like to be a CEO for them, right? Because we often forget as you're working with your industry partners in your dental offices and the people, the companies supporting you, those folks are entrepreneurs just like you, and they're, finding the same challenges and trying to figure out how to grow and scale just like you. So we thought it would be cool to bring on a few of our best industry partners and talk about that. So today I have Brannon Moncrief, CEO and principal of McLerran Associates. So McLerran Associates is a close partner with the DEO. You guys have been supporting a lot of our members who are looking to exit or prepare for an exit or understand what they need to do later on to exit, build a vision for exiting and transacting. And so, Brannon, you've been working with our members for a while, but today we're going to talk about something different, which is your entrepreneurial journey. So, Brannon, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction and give folks on listening here an understanding of what you're, who you are, and what you're all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jake. Good to see you, and thanks for having me. So, as Jake said, I'm the principal CEO of McLerran Associates. My journey in dentistry started about 23 years ago. I've spent my entire professional life in dentistry, and I have a finance degree from Texas A&M University. So back when I was 21 years old, I interviewed with about 80 different companies as I was graduating from college, and took a position as an underwriter at a small finance company that specialized in lending money to dentists all across the country to acquire, start, and expand practices. So I thought it seemed like a cool industry. It was a small company. I was going to get to use my degree every day rather than just taking some random sales job straight out of college. And started there as an underwriter, just getting to know the business of dentistry and the financial inner workings of practices, and worked my way up over the course of about 9 years to becoming the director of business development. So at that point, my job was to develop referral relationships with brokers and CPAs and attorneys and consultants that serve dentists on a daily basis. And they would refer those dentists to me if they were looking to buy a practice for a loan to fund that acquisition. So was essentially running the dental lending division at that company. And 9 years in, I realized that I really wanted to get out of banking, but didn't want to leave dentistry. I wanted to kind of stay in the M&A space within dentistry, but wanted to move on the sell side and become a broker, become a sell side advisor. And it was kind of a unique evolution of banking in the dental industry that occurred. When I started with that small finance company, it was all small finance companies out there lending money to dentists. There was about 5 or 6 small finance companies that worked specifically in the dental space. And by the time 9 years went by, my competitors, I was still at this small finance company, my competitors were Bank of America, Wells Fargo, some of the largest banks in the world. And I knew that being at a small finance company, we were going to get pushed out of dentistry just because of the sheer competitive nature of these and the size of these other lenders. So I approached Paul McLerran, who owned McLerran Associates at the time. Paul was a former dentist that developed a hand disability and was really one of the first dental practice brokers in the country, based in Texas. And he was working with his son. I approached him about partnering with him or acquiring his business. I basically said, hey, I'm going to become a broker. I'm going to move from Houston to Austin. We can either work together or compete against each other. Is there an opportunity for us to work together? And it was perfect timing. He said, look, I've been wanting to retire for a couple of years. My son, David McLerran, not quite experienced enough to take over the business. Why don't you guys partner 50-50 and buy the company from me? And that was 13 years ago. So about 60 days following that conversation, I moved from Houston to Austin, purchased McLerran Associates with David McLerran, the founder's son, and we started to kind of re-engineer the business with the aspiration to grow it at that point. And we spent 6 years together growing the legacy business that I took over, which is really kind of the traditional practice sales, doctor to doctor business. We went from doing about 10 to 12 practice sales a year to doing about 50 practice sales a year across the state of Texas. And I remember this vividly, but following Thanksgiving one year, David came to me and said, "Hey man, this was my dad's company. It's not my passion. These deals wear me out. It's a very stressful business. And I want to travel the world and pursue photography. And, even though we're doing great, you want to run really hard. I'm kind of a free spirit. I want to exit the business. If you'll buy me out, that'd be great." And at that point in time, I invited my brother, who's now my business partner for the past 7 years, to come over from Patterson Dental. He was also in the dental industry, buy David out and become my partner. So for the past 7 years, Ryan and I have owned the company, and more recently brought on some minority partners, some really talented people that have been with us for a while. We rewarded them with equity. And we're now a team of 13. We're nationwide, have offices in Austin, San Diego, and Atlanta. We've now sold over 1,500 dental practices across the country. A lot of those being traditional practice sales, doctor to doctor deals, and then over 200 DSO and private equity transactions. So that's been the biggest change in our company about 5 years ago. Being based in Texas, we were kind of on the forefront of a lot of the consolidation that occurred early in the dental industry. And a lot of DSOs are based in Texas. It was a DSO-friendly state, and it was a favorable environment for DSOs to start to consolidate the marketplace. So we started seeing that happening in our backyard, and we were like, all right, we need to get educated about private equity, and we need to build out a process to represent large practice owners who are looking to go down that path rather than the traditional doctor to doctor practice sales path. So that was really a shot in the arm for our business. It was really, really fun to build out the team, build out the process, and expand the company over the past 5 years. And it's been very rewarding emotionally, financially for us and for our clients. So that's the sandbox that I play in every day. I lead our DSO and private equity team, as well as kind of oversee the operations and the development and scaling of our business.
Yeah, I love that story. A few things about it that I love. So first, I love that we can either compete or be on the same team. I think that's something people don't think about enough, right? Which is when you're opening something out, you really can look around and say, is there anyone awesome around me that I can just hook onto, like a little attached to that already, in motion rocket ship, rather than starting over. So sounds very smart. It sounds like you guys were in alignment. And then I'm very interesting too. One of the graphics that we show a lot in the DEO is when you talk about DSOs consolidating, a similar industry was actually banking, right? It was there's this chart, if you look on Google, just search like bank consolidation. It's got all these banks and lenders and everything here. And over the past 20, 30 years, you see the big fish have kind of gobbled, and it's kind of the smaller fish, and it's kind of settled into a consolidated marketplace. And so as dental's thinking about the way the consolidation goes and all those types of things, it's interesting to look at banking as an example of how that went. So it sounds like you lived that, you saw that coming, and you decided to kind of get in the other end of it.
Yeah, we stayed small and independent, and looking back, as far as the dental lending environment, that was a mistake.
Right. So kind of a lesson in just teaming up with people who are in alignment, but also are on the same rocket ship that you're on. I love that. So you're a CEO, and you've actually grown this business. Not only have you grown it, you've kind of transitioned it, right? You've taken it from small mom and pop, which there's a lot of folks, a lot of industry partners out there in dental who still have yet to do this. They're still only working with mom and pops because they're afraid of this transition. They're afraid of, am I going to upset the traditional industry, my current clients? It's like the innovator's dilemma, right? Am I going to upset my current clients if I go and work with these other people? So you led through that. Were there any challenges in doing that? I mean, this is essentially like change management, the whole different direction of the company.
Yeah, I mean, there were some significant challenges in it. I think just in general, DSO was kind of a four-letter word for a long time,
Long time.
right?
Yeah.
So with a lot of our clients, we wouldn't even bring it up for fear of being run out of their office. So the way we run our company, we've always been very buttoned up, and we want to make sure that we can deliver an incredible product and experience for our clients. So we spent about 2 years really getting educated about private equity, EBITDA multiples, valuation through the lens of that marketplace. And then going around and meeting with all the executives from all the DSOs to figure out, who's who in the zoo, who's legit, who do we believe in, who do we not believe in, who do we want to allow to have a seat at the table and bid on our practices. So we spent quite a bit of time kind of building the infrastructure, building the team, building the knowledge base before we actually launched
Mm.
and started going to practice owners and saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we can deliver. So there was a learning curve there, and there was an investment that we had to make in time and resources and people. Um, I think one of the things that I wish I would have done sooner is expand our team and delegate. That was one of the things that I was very, very protective of, protecting the reputation of the company, protecting the work product, and really having too much on my plate where I was, if you will, chair side, right?
Mhm.
And didn't remove myself from the chair soon enough to be able to lift my head up and expand my company and delegate.
Yeah.
So had I done that, a couple of years sooner, I think we would be, even bigger and more well known than we are today.
Yeah. So another cool thing that I think you did there, which I've actually been thinking about that a lot lately, which is this idea of when you first become an entrepreneur or a leader, there's all this kind of like they call it like entrepreneur porn, right? Like this entrepreneur like getting you all excited about like we're gonna go and conquer the mountain and just do all these things. And part of the principles there is like fail fast, right? Just get out there and be active, fail fast. But as I go in my career more, if you think about playing the long game, when you're playing the long game, you do things like take 2 years to research, right? And interview dozens, if not hundreds of people when you're going into a new endeavor, right? And you're doing change management, you're changing the company, you take it slow, you stay buttoned up, you keep your communication in line, and you really avoid this like frantic kind of energy in changing course and direction. I think our members or folks that listen to the podcast would anytime we're launching some new initiative, right? They're adding a specialty or opening location. Sometimes you can take it slow and get the information and do the research rather than jumping into it. It sounds like that's how you approached going into the DSO market.
Yeah, I think there's a balance there. They say that, perfection is the enemy of progress, right? So you don't want everything doesn't have to be absolutely perfect in order for you to scale and expand. But at the same time, I'm not a big like fake it till you make it type person. So I think there's a balance there that a tightrope that you need to walk in order to be successful in scaling your business.
Yeah, and I think one way to think about it is how much do you have to lose, right? If you already have this whole company going on that's generating revenue and it's working, right? Then maybe it's just take a time a little bit and do some research and enter the new thing kind of methodically and deliberately, right? Which I like that you did that, right?
Yeah.
Um, your team can't always handle that much change, and when you take it slow, it makes it easier for them to do that. So it sounds like it was successful.
Yeah, it's worked out wonderfully. But I think it's we had the benefit of having a foundational business that was paying the bills that
Exactly.
allowed us to do that research and spend that time and forego maybe short-term income or profit to play, the long game.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of, the DEO members do the same, right? A lot of people that we talk to have a badass, initial location that does 2, 3, $4 million a year. Now that's paying the bills. And once you've built that, it allows you to continue to scale the business, knowing that, you can afford to fail. or afford for things not to go perfectly as you scale the business, because you've got that foundational business and revenue source that's there as a
Yeah.
backstop to pay your bills.
You got the golden goose, you want to protect that golden goose. So the other thing that I want to touch on there is in you kind of developing as a leader was this idea of delegation. So what did you learn? Maybe even communicate in a way that folks in dental leaders and dental CEOs maybe can learn from. Like, what did you learn about delegation? How did it go? Maybe where did you trip up? Where did you find success?
Yeah, so it was about 4 years ago, I want to say, where we adopted kind of a little bit of a hierarchy within our company, and I became the CEO. Actually, rather than the principal, I became the CEO. And at that time, I thought really hard about what that meant to become a CEO and act like a CEO. So I started, reading a lot and kind of adopting a different mentality that my job was now to develop people and to develop the business, rather than have my hands in every single deal and every single thing that we were
Mhm.
working on. And once I took that mentality, uh, it was a game changer.
Mhm.
For one, how excited I was when I got out of bed every day. And two, it forced me to build out the team, because I decided there were certain things that I was no longer going to do. I quantified what my time was worth and best spent doing, what I enjoyed and what I was really, really good at, and really assigned a dollar value to my personal time and professional time. And when I did those things, it just transformed the way I looked at life and the way I looked at my business, and forced me to go out and hire talent and make those investments and to train, mentor, and delegate. And that's when the business started to grow
Yeah.
substantially.
Yeah, an important point there is that the CEO position actually is a job description. Like it is a role with specific KPIs and specific responsibilities. And one of the largest responsibilities there is to develop the people, right? Build the people who build the business. And when you're stuck doing we call it like a player coach, or like being a player on the team and not the coach or the GM, you don't have time to fulfill that job description. So it sounds like you're able to delegate out and find a team that's doing the day-to-day, that's doing the blocking and tackling, and then you could elevate up and become the true CEO whose job is to develop all the team around them.
Yeah. And through doing that, I now spend my time doing what I love, and that's talking to large practice owners on a daily basis, just getting to know them and
Mm-hmm.
talk about strategy, talk about scaling, talk about what it means to build a meaningful business and then look to monetize it. And then yeah, just talking with my team and developing people and helping them navigate the challenges that they have to navigate on a daily basis, doing what's within their job description.
Yeah. So last thing I want to touch on, just as far as a leader and a CEO, how do you deal with the stresses of being the person where it's all on your shoulders, right? I mean, it essentially
Yeah, well,
revolves.
I think that starts obviously with having an awesome team, that's very talented, that you can trust. Um, and having a well-versed team that has, in each person, they have a different personality and a different skill set, so that you're all complementary to each other. I think in order to be successful in small business, you've got to have a rock star in every seat.
Mhm.
So I'm big on recruiting the absolute best talent and compensating those people well so that they stay with you. Because there's nothing worse than investing in someone a lot of time and energy and then have them leave you for one reason or the other. So being very careful about how you identify talent, onboard that talent, and retain it, I think is critically important. And then, understanding that not everything has to be perfect. And that I think a superpower is staying calm in
Mhm.
the face of adversity, and just having faith that if you live by the right principles, you treat people well, you put your client's interest above everything else, as many of your, DEO members do every day in their practice, everything else is going to take care of itself. So being calm and having faith that everything's going to work out is on a daily basis, I think critically important to being level-headed and having perspective and making good decisions. Because when you're upset or angry or whatever it may be, you tend to lose sight of the ball and make split-second decisions that can have a lasting impact.
Yeah, it's another one of those parts of the job description of the CEO, which is to bring calm into the organization, bring people a sense of stability, and that means not having emotional, rants and volatility as with ourselves as the CEOs. So I love that. What are you working on now, kind of with your CEO skills or personal development? Like, what's on your mind? You're like, oh, I need to get better on stage, or I need to get better at how I'm communicating with my team, or I need to get my morning routine better. Like, what's kind of on your mind right now?
So everything in the business is clicking. I think we've got a fantastic team. The work product's amazing. The client experience is great. The reputation kind of speaks for itself. I think for me now is trying to figure out how to have balance in my life,
Thank
and
you. I want
looking more at the personal side. I have a young family, and I've missed a lot of my kids' childhood up to this point. So trying to figure out how to have better balance
Mhm,
without sacrificing the performance of the business. And
mhm.
whether that means, continuing to onboard some talent to take some burden off of myself, or leveraging technology to be more efficient, whatever it may be, and then to be very protective of my personal time. That's kind of what I'm going through right now. How to carve out enough time so that I have time to spend with my kids, my wife, my friends and family, as well as take care of myself physically. Because if you
Yeah.
don't take care of yourself, emotionally and physically, at some point you're going to hit a breaking point, and everything's going to suffer as a result, including the performance of the business.
Yeah, longevity is really the key. I mean, if we can go hard right now is one thing, but if we can go hard for the next 20 years, that's the whole other thing, right? And that's the key, is being able to go, keep going. Something that we see with our the folks we work with, as you elevate and as the business starts clicking more, it's an interesting thing that we come across as leaders, which is this feeling and this understanding that, our job is just a few small hinges. Is this push on a few small hinges, which is different than 15 years ago, which was our job was to like do a lot of tasks and a lot of like get as much done as we could in the day. And then I've seen a lot of leaders struggle with the feeling that they're not doing a lot, because all they're doing is just a few really really important things that have really really high impact. And then we're left with like this feeling like, well, I'm not doing anything, but really you're doing a lot.
I
It's
would
just
love to get there, Jake. I'm not quite there yet. My calendar is busy every day when I walk in the morning. So I
Well, I
think
think
that's
that's the first step. I think the first step is reducing the calendar. But it's an interesting thing psychologically, where sometimes the calendar expands because we feel like it's really moving forward. But Alex Sharfin, who's a business coach, and I talk a lot about this. He says a lot that as you grow, it'll start to get a little easier. But as leaders, and just kind of speaking what we've seen with some of our members and the people we work with, it's hard to see that it's actually like a lot of stuff is actually getting taken care of, but it feels like we kind of have to be on it. But I think that does come at some point. But maybe
Yeah, and I think that's where having the right people and the trust,
exactly.
that things are going to take care of themselves, that they have it under control. But yeah, that's going through that can be anxious. It can make you anxious, kind of losing control or giving up control. But as a CEO, that's kind of your job.
In reality, you've never been in more control, right? Because you have the exact right people doing the exact right things, and the risk is the lowest it's ever been. But it's just interesting as leaders, our brain, it takes a while to like wrap up, like understand, feel that, you know what I mean? It's a whole thing. So I love that. I think what you're experiencing is what a lot of people experience. Um, Yeah, and I have friends and I have people. I mean, I'm kind of in the arena too still, so I'm working a lot as well. But I have friends who are on the other end of that, and yeah, they have a calm life, and the team is okay with that, you know, because they're getting what they need, and the CEO's moving the needles that they need to move, but maybe it's not necessarily at the pace where it was 10 years ago, and they don't need it to be, you know. So it's an interesting thing that I think only people who have been in the position can probably understand.
Yep, yep. One day I will not find myself saying 12 months from now, 18
All
months
right.
from now, things are gonna
All right.
look this way.
Let's
So
say 12 months. Let's say 12 months. Well, from what we can see and everything you guys have provided for us and our members and our clientele, you guys are doing great. I mean, truly. All of the folks that we work with that work with you guys have amazing things to say. And you guys have been a great partner. You provide a lot of incredible education to our members. So, Brandon, I don't know. From my perspective, I think you can take some time off. I think it's time.
appreciate that, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much. And thank you for participating in our CEO series here. And it's very cool to hear the story behind McLerran. And yeah, if you're listening, look them up. If you're thinking about, you know, what it might look like to not even exit, to transact, to recapitalize, to inject some money, to take some chips off the table, to prepare for that, to even understand what that might look like, even if it's 3 to 5 years down the road. Look up Brandon, look up McLerran because they're super trustworthy group to kind of guide you down that path. So thank you so much.